Hey guys, welcome to the Youth Fitness Podcast. Topics on youth fitness with a focus on doing what's best for kids. Brought to you by the Martin family, the developers of the Brand X Method, and the Athlete Coach Network.
Youth need great coaches now more than ever. Brand X has dedicated themselves to doing what is best for kids for over 2 decades and now offers mentoring, education, programming, and resources in one smart package to empower coaches to efficiently deliver world-class youth programs. Check out their plug-and-play options and join the Brand X family today. You plus Brand X equals youth program success. Hi, we're here for another Youth Fitness Podcast, and we have the lovely Rachel Steadman here today. And man, we have a colorful background of how we met, and she has an amazing professional journey to where she is now, and there's a lot to talk about here. So Rachel, can you tell us a little bit about your CrossFit background, because that leads to how we met.
So I started CrossFit back in 2003, I want to say, and it was through my husband, Carl. We didn't meet through CrossFit. A lot of people think we did, but we absolutely did not. And he was doing a workout in his back garden, and I looked at this thing and I thought, that looks terrible. I want to go. So I sort of said, what are you doing? And he said, thrusters. Oh. And I said, show me how.
Were you looking over a fence or a back garden hedge? How did that occur?
No. So this was after we'd met. So we met in a bar in London, just randomly. He was a personal trainer at a gym in London, and my housemate at the time was receptionist there. So we'd gone out for drinks for somebody's leaving do, I think it was. I think it was a joint that and my friend's birthday. And we'd met in a pub and hit it off. And this is probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 months down the line. And I was at his house just hanging out. And he's like, I have to go and do a workout. So I was like, okay. And sort of watched what he was doing. And I sort of thought, yeah, that looks fun. I'll give it a go. And that was kind of how I began doing CrossFit workouts, and made me cry a few times, the usual. And I really liked it. I really gelled with it. I just liked doing hard things in terms of training. I've done a lot in swimming in the past and competitive sports. So this was sort of that, but just every day. So competing against yourself, just having a bit of a laugh with the other half, and just that was the start of it. And then I think it was when the old message board was around, and there was only, I don't know, 5, 6 maybe people in the UK who did CrossFit at that time. So we said, well, do you know what? Come down. We'll do a massive big workout. I think we called them Painstorms. I think you guys were involved in it as well across the pond. And then we started to do those. We started hosting in the back garden. Everyone from CrossFit in the UK at that time came down, threw down, and had a barbecue afterwards. This is before we knew any better in terms of maximum effective dose, and decided to do Fran followed by Helen, followed by Grace, followed by anything. And probably that's why it was called Painstorm, to be honest. But yeah, that was the start of it. And then we invited them all to our wedding in 2006. And you can imagine what that would be like if you try to invite everybody in the UK who did CrossFit now to the wedding. Would be a much bigger affair. But everyone came. And during the evening do, Carl was chatting to one of the other guests, and he said, I was thinking about setting up an actual gym. And Carl had a few drinks and was like, I'm in. Let me see what Rachel thinks. So called me over, said, we're going to set up a gym. Are you interested? And I was like, absolutely. And that was the birth of the first CrossFit gym that we owned in 2006, the end of 2006. And then, just escalated from there, really.
And somewhere in this journey, there was some action on the message board between Jeff and Carl. And
I invited him to come stay with us.
Yeah, you're just going to come out and say that before I say it. And
Right. I invited him to come stay with us, and he came to the level 1 that was being held at our gym.
Jeff had some CrossFit people that he met on the message boards and would invite them to our house. I think we ended up with maybe 6 or more people that we only knew on the message boards coming to stay at our house. But that was the way it was. The community was, people were so intrigued by what was going on and wanting to talk to other people doing it, that it was just this amazing connection, I think. And we were so lucky that to host Carl and Davey the first time, right?
Right. And then I think we went over and did a seminar. It was supposed to be a self-defense seminar in London. And then that got to an Olympic weightlifting seminar in London.
Back in the day. You got voluntold. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, to do everything you planned to do when you came over, you're going to do this. And I think that was the first time the 4 or the 3 of us met, was at that seminar.
I think you're right.
You took us to your house, and you said, let's do, he was Murph. Let's do Murph together, because that sounds like fun. And all I remember was taking off on the first run and getting lost in some kind of neighborhood somewhere. And running was never my strong suit anyway. And so now I'm running and I'm lost, and no one's coming to find me. I'm just running randomly through some London neighborhood. It was, I remember I lost that workout by a significant time.
No. I lost it.
No, I think you got back in time.
I was following you. I was
lost. They had to send out a crew, I think, to find me.
And then there was possibly, was it a honeymoon in San Diego?
Yes, that's right. So we had 2 weeks. The first week we spent in the Scottish Highlands, which is now where we live, because we loved it that much. We're like, right, we're moving up here eventually. So we did. And then, the second one was out with you guys in San Diego. I don't think that was the time that we did the course with you. I think that was another time. But we did spend quite a lot of time with you. Went on the beach. I think Connor taught us to surf at one point. And it was fantastic. It's just a wonderful week. And we spent a lot of time training. And I think that wasn't the fish taco episode, was it? Because I wasn't there for the fish taco episode.
No, the fish taco episode. Carl came to his first level 1 at our place. And we went and got fish tacos. Then we did a workout afterwards. He was not prepared for either the fish tacos or how hot it gets where we live. And
he can remember the workout, though. He says it was heavy push press and rope climbs.
Yes.
I think it was the rope climbs and the fish taco.
Back, which was, as I recall, sorry to say, but that was I was maybe not the careful coach I grew into at that point.
Fun times. We all had a learning curve, right? Let's hope that it doesn't steep. End at some point.
Back then the learning curve was steep with CrossFit because nobody was doing what we were doing. And now you can walk into any global gym and they're all doing functional fitness the way back then, functional fitness was sitting on a Swiss ball and doing curls. And all of a sudden it was doing thrusters with heavy weights, and climbing ropes and sprinting and things like that. It was quite a bit different. And now you can go in almost anywhere and find that, which kind of leads us around to the topics of learning how to do it safely and well, and then running a gym safely and well.
Rachel, your company is Ellipsis Training and Adventures. And you to tell us kind of your professional journey of how you got to that, and then tell us about what you do.
So I guess it stems right back to that wedding night when we agreed to open a CrossFit gym. And I think it was one of the first, if not the first in the UK to open at that time. And we had nothing to go on. Even sort of gyms in the States were only about 5 years ahead. So you can get information from the message boards, but there wasn't a great deal of sort of business practices back then. At the time that we opened the gym, I was working for a construction company with a background. I've got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in science subjects. And I went to go on a graduate course for a construction company. And they hired me basically to head up the environmental department for them. Because big companies in the UK are quite rigid in what the standards that they have to uphold, especially if they're going to be sort of a legitimate and compliant. And the companies that I work for were all aiming for international standards, ISO standards. So I had a background where I was working with these standards, and there's three, and there's 14,001, which is the environmental standard. There's 45,001, which is the health and safety one, and there's 9,001, which is quality. So I had experience of all these three quality standard, international standards, that's the one. And I was working in that day in, day out, and I'd walk into the CrossFit gym and I was like, oh, I can see this, and this, and this. So I was like, no one's ever put documents together for this. And I have the knowledge and the underpinning, the foundational work to put this together. So I started right back then, just sort of looking around and thinking, well, what could we do here? What would be useful here? What would be useful here? And it's taken me since then, so that's coming up to 2 decades, of pulling together some documents to help gyms to run more safely and more effectively. And then the beauty of systems, these management systems, is that they integrate so that it's not just one standalone document. It's how does this document feed into this document, which then helps that document get populated, which makes sure you don't miss that. In fact, we'll repeat that 5 times so that if you do miss it 4 times, you'll catch it the 5th. And it's just a really robust way of just managing your risks within the business. And not us, but gyms that we've looked after have been audited a number of times. I've been there when the local councils come in and sort of ask them questions, and it's passed with flying colours. So, we've created this system and we know it works.
I would think really, really needed. And I love that. I've had a peek at some of those documents, and the detail was impressive. All of the thought. And we talk about the learning curve and the things we did early on. I'm so glad no one was harmed, but there was a lot to think about, and it took really a lot of years to put those things together, just as a very early, what do we do? How do we do this? I kind of have a reputation in the family as the safety lady. I think it goes really further back than that, but a little bit worried all the time that people are going to harm themselves. And when we first had kids, Jeff would just, try and meter my anxiety. I was helicoptering quite a bit with our kids. And I got to the point that I realized he's right. They have to learn themselves. I can't just keep catching them. So I literally had to teach myself to turn around and look away when the kids would do things that I thought they'd fall and break their arm or something, where it became, okay, I have to retrain myself to accept that they have to learn how to manage risk. They have to learn how to assess the risk themselves. They have to learn how to manage it. And they have to, first they have to recognize that's risky. I'm going to do it anyway. Let me make the assessment on what the things are that I need to know about so that I can carefully plan my way through it and come out a champion on the other side, right? And then I had to apply that kind of safety lady thing to the gym itself, not just raising our boys, but to the gym where there are things going on that I just wanted to look away because I would worry about all the risks. So people teased me because you probably remember pads around all of the vertical stands, the rig. There were pads. No one else had pads. I had pads because I was sure kids were going to smash into those. Didn't really happen very often, but it did happen a few times. So much so that one Halloween, I think I dressed up as a safety lady because everybody was laughing about my concerns and being overly concerned. But it turns out that it's pretty important to take care of those risks, to understand what they are, and for businesses to be successful and a little more bulletproof, to know what are the things we need to look out for. And then specifically in the care of children.
Yeah.
Risk is different than being challenged. It's like that. So you don't grow unless you have challenge. So a child still needs to climb a tree, needs to learn how needs to do things that are challenging and yes, carry some risk in them. But we as parents need to manage that risk. So I was always like, okay, go ahead and climb the tree. But I'm always right there going like, well, if they fall, I'm going to catch them. I'm going to try to do something to help them to manage the risk. I'm just going to let them perceive that they're taking the risk themselves. But, there's the idea that is that challenge and risk are different. So if we come into the gym, I might want to push people, and challenge them, but I'm not going to do things that are risky, like, hey, let's block the exit doors. Let's not have pads under the ropes, things like that. Those are, I think, and that is something that for you had to really monitor the challenge. When the challenge, I would just like to keep my kids on the ground, sitting down on a blanket,
No, I didn't want that.
Watching other kids climb a tree.
No.
Yeah, so.
We had a zip line in our backyard that was at one end was around a tree, and at the other end was anchored by our patio, by the post at our patio. And just suddenly it was a couple of years, we realized the tree had grown such that the angle of the zip line was a little steep. And then when they were zipping, toward that post. So we didn't say don't do it. We just tied a pillow to the
again
to the post.
Again with the padding around and stuff.
Anyway, this is just all to say it's really important stuff that we need to be able to challenge, but challenge ourselves within the gym environment, but be completely aware of what all the things are that need to be, the boxes are checked. And it's not just physical safety, it's well beyond that, as you've mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got the risk element of perhaps the challenges that are there, but there's almost two sides to it. So that's almost a professional competence, knowing what if children or teens, in this case, are capable of, and how you can help them to grow whilst keeping them safe or allowing them to challenge, but also reining them in if something goes awry. But I think the other side of that, which a lot of people miss, is there's a lot of legal compliance issues which you can't mess around with. So, we can watch our kids. My kids are outside at the moment playing football. I'm sure somebody's going to end up hurting a bit. But the only repercussions of that would be that they'd come in and I'd patch them up and we'd say, well, what have we learned there? And they'd say, well, perhaps I shouldn't hit my brother or whatever. But in a gym situation, there's so many other things that could happen. There's legal repercussions. There's complaints from members. There's negligence. There's lawsuits. If you're going down that route, there's loss of morale. There's staff well-being. There's any kind of complaints that might come in. There's financial side of that. And then whether or not, if that financial side hits your company, whether you can pay the people that you employ. So there's almost there's a responsibility that comes with businesses in managing that side of things that goes way beyond risk or challenges. It's just, this has to be done. And if you don't do it, it takes one slip up to cause you real problems.
We had some experience with those things too in our history there, didn't we?
A little bit. I think that what you're saying is that it's risk not to manage risk. Like you're risking the business. Risking the first. I loved a post she put up on LinkedIn recently, and it said that something along the lines of about this is not a cost. It's not a cost. It's an investment, and we feel like that about running youth programs. There's a direct line there to me, because we see people going with youth programs like, how can I stand a youth program up with as quickly as possible without training or without, I want to get the revenue in of the youth program. And then we come down the road and we find retention is bad with the kids. They never grow. They're just filling up an hour with, and that's the best part, versus being contacted like we have been in the last couple of years, contacted several times by attorneys saying, this happened in a gym with youth, is that was there the proper standard of care being?
Yeah.
And the people just didn't know. So I think that's really important to just kind of talk about the risks of business of not doing these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that it's an investment. It should be the core. And
Yeah.
I think the community has grown up enough that they're more cognizant of that than they were back in the day when we were all starting out and putting things.
There was another post I put up recently, and it was the cost, what it could cost you if you're caught out on various things. And I think I only put up 8 slides, something like that. But the total, I'm going to ignore duty of care under health and safety because that's a huge fine. But just simple things that you could fix tomorrow was in the realm of £40,000 just in that one post. I'm like, just do that, and you'll save yourself from ever having to worry about somebody walking through your door and fining you for that. But then you get into the realms of duty of care and the fines escalate astronomically to about 150,000 for the average claim. So that's one of the reasons I always say that you've got to have it in place. You never know what's around the corner or what can go wrong or who you've got in your gym, that what reasons they might have to complain or just take matters as far as they can. It's unfortunately it's too late if it happens. So you don't need it until that moment, and there's no time to put it in place.
What are the types of things you're looking for, and what's the most commonly overlooked thing?
Oh, that's a good one.
More than one.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're thinking about the demographic you've got in your gym, most people will plan for adults all the time. So the height your equipment's stored at, where your J-cuts would be in the rig, if you're storing there at all, which I totally hate. It's all thought of for adults. So let's say, for instance, someone's been doing pull-ups and people always use J-cups to tread on to get themselves up to the pull-up bar, and that ends up being at kids' head height. So it's just that thought process of there being another demographic within that environment, which you've also got to make sure is safe. So having, use them for your pull-ups if you want. I don't really like it, but, use it if you want. But take them out afterwards so that no one can hit themselves on it. Or, if you've got kids' equipment, or this, maybe you want a special area of kids' equipment to make sure that you've got the height of that, matching the children. Or I've got a little list, actually. I did write it down on things like that. Social media safety, that's a huge one over here. And I remember having this discussion back with you guys many, many years ago. Just don't name the kids on social media. I mean, a lot of the times these days, my daughter started her Instagram account when she was 12, and I told her off for it and everything. But if you've got 12-year-olds tagging themselves in at your gym on social media, so somebody will know exactly what time they train, where they train, what the name is, and it's quite easy to go and target that person. So it's being very aware of the way that the world's very open these days. Social media is also a big one for being able to see the gyms firsthand in terms of what safety breaches there might be. So, you'll be able to see perhaps kids climbing ropes when there's no mat underneath, or any number of things like that, or doing pull-up movements on the rig with a box underneath when it doesn't need to have the box underneath, so they're not like jumping, they're actually, there's all sorts of little examples like that. If somebody hurts themselves, it doesn't take long to go back to their social media or the gym's social media and say, well, that was risky for them, so was that. We've got the evidence of it now, so you haven't got a leg to stand on. So there's that kind of thing. And then there's the measures, I would say emergency measures. They're not the best in general in gyms. Sort of, I don't know how many gyms have got a fire marshal, for instance, but again, the plans will be for an adult population. And then if you add kids into that, that's an extra layer of complexity, so that kids don't react the same in an emergency as an adult would. You get panic setting, parents are going back to try and find the kids and that kind of thing. So having a plan in place to say, right, if we've got a kids class, it's that trainer's responsibility to gather the kids and take them all out, and just making sure that they know the processes beforehand, so that the kids have done a fire drill so they don't panic straight away. That's often overlooked by gyms. That's what I would say were the biggest things.
Yeah. And thought about the fire drill situation. We used to have emergency contact cards for the kids. So we'd know who to contact were there any such emergency. And then we had a point of contact in the gym, the person, a certain trainer. Sorry about that. A certain trainer that would take lead if there were any sort of emergencies, but we didn't divide it. Even us, we didn't think through of dividing that by by demographic. We didn't say the adults and the kids. And I think that matters. I think that's a really amazing detail that probably has a lot of power because, as you mentioned, the kids are going to respond differently and also would be like, well, who's that guy? I don't know him. You know, he hasn't been, where's my trainer?
And it does happen. One of the things that, and as an example, years ago, CrossFit sent a team to videotape a teen class at Brand X. And they were going to use the video. They ended up using the video during the CrossFit Kids course. So they set the team down. We got halfway through the class, and the space next to us caught on fire. So there's flames and smoke billowing out. There's the fire rescue people coming. There's 45 teens. There's a camera crew, and it was fortunate that we had a couple of experienced trainers on. Everybody stop, everybody move over here. But this stuff can happen. It's not even in your gym.
Yeah.
And by the way, if something had gone wrong, there was a camera crew there to film it going wrong for perpetuity. So, not thinking through these things, not having somebody like you who can come in and go like, what these things thought through can have some real lasting effects for the gym.
Yeah, for sure.
Social media. So, back in the day when we were teaching the kids course, we used to tell people to keep their names out of the social media.
And location.
Certainly social media is something that people use now to promote their programs, promote their gyms. But it's a tough thing. What would you say to parents? I try to tell the people we mentor, if you're going to tag somebody, tag the parent, don't tag the kid, because you don't want that. But then there is a problem with kids want to show what they're doing. They want to tag themselves in their gym. So what would you?
Yeah. Well, I would say not even tagging the parent these days, because it's very easy to go on that parent's profile and then find the kids, because they'll have tagged the kids somewhere within their profiles. It's, if you want to, basically what I would say is that if somebody wants to find the kids, they will be able to these days. So I would actually I'd say don't name the kids, but also we're on the side of caution by sort of educating the kids on how to manage if they are approached by somebody. Limit the ability to be approached by somebody in your gym on the premises. Make sure that if the kids are picked up by somebody and you see them leave, if the kids have got permission to go home, then that's a bit of more of a difficult one because they're not in your care anymore. I think it's more of an educating the child to, if anyone approaches them, to have some kind of key word or question that they can ask that person that only the family would know the answer to. Our kids, we've given them a code word that there's like, oh, my mum, right? What such and such does she do? And so that only certain people will know the answer, or what's our code word or something like that, so that if anyone wasn't picking up for us, they wouldn't know it. So that's our way of almost saying to them, that's the only way that you'll know.
Those are good points. Using social media to promote your gym as well, like with the teen programs. One of the things that I have trouble with is people will videotape something going on in their teen class. They've got somebody who's squatting beautifully, let's say. So they're videotaping that, but they're not paying attention to what's going on behind them. And they've got 5 13-year-old boys punching each other or something, and all that going on behind. And I always tell people when they say, well, here, take a look at my video or picture. I'm going like, okay, I understand what you want me to look at, but the first thing I'm doing is looking at everything behind you. Like one kid who's squatting really well and everybody else is a train wreck. So,
or there are things going on in the back.
Yeah, just things going on in the background.
Smack site.
What you haven't.
Yeah.
It's a really good point you made that social media can become something that people look at once something has gone wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was one that I saw, and it was a trainer, and they were the kids in the class, and they weren't moving well either. It was just showing how much fun they were having. Yeah, they were having fun, but the way that these kids were moving was not appropriate. And not only that, is that whoever was filming then panned past the trainer who was standing there on his phone, looking at his phone and not watching the kids in front. And I was like, there is no way that can go anywhere on a channel that's reputable. Or if somebody says, my kids got hurt in your class, and has that video, it's like, well, yeah, there's an example of the trainer not paying attention to what they're asking the kids to do. It's right there.
Stay off your phones.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you train, you're there for a job, and you have a job to do.
Is that part of a checklist?
Trainers and phones.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Oh, now you're testing me. I definitely have like a pre and post class checklist. And I also have an expectations list for staff members. And I'm pretty sure I've got stay off your phones in some capacity on one of those. Yeah. Yeah. The trouble is when gyms have software for you to check people in at the gym, so they're using the phone for that, which is arguably okay. But if you're trying to avoid that completely, then I would argue that the gym might be better having some kind of central panel, an iPad or something, to be able to do that on, to keep the trainer off the phones. Likewise, controlling music within the gym as well, if they're on the phone trying to select the playlists and things like that. Just, you're never going to stop it completely, but trying to keep it to a minimum. And we also have things like trainer class checklists. So somebody can go in and assess a trainer running a class. And it is that in there, it's like, are they paying attention to the class? So again, that would get picked up within that. And they'd probably be asked to stay off their phone in future, because it's so obvious that they're not paying attention when they are.
I have found some photos where that's the case, where I can see trainers in the background just, and it is difficult also in the case of it. You have one trainer and they're also supposed to take some photos while they're going to do that with their phone, or they're getting a record, like an Excel. In the old days, an Excel spreadsheet, what are the kids lifting? It's what they did this week, and everybody checks in on, or Google or whatever, that they're all checking in, and that all also makes sense. But as we know, there's so much else that pops up that going down a rabbit hole on something, even if it's a minute or two, takes your eyes away off those kids. So I think the idea of finding other ways to use those systems, like a single check-in point, as you're saying, I love that idea, so that we can limit the time that eyes are off those kids, or make sure there's multiple people or multiple people.
Yeah. Or if you need to check something on your phone, just make sure the class isn't moving. But at the same time, are you impacting the class by keeping them from moving? Let's say for the spreadsheet of their lift numbers, for instance, well, that could form part of the warm-up. It's like, well, here's the checklist. Go and check what your lists are. That's what you're doing today, so that the kids get to have a look, and then they go off, rather than checking on your phone and saying, you're doing that, you're doing that. Just make it, integrate it within the workout or the brief, if that's something that you've got to do.
We had our lists, and we put in the numbers we wanted the kids to lift before they got there.
Yeah.
And after the lifts were done, so now we've stopped this class, we're getting ready for the next class, we go in and verify that those were the numbers that they lifted and how well they lifted, so that you had those. But you didn't do it while they were running the class. And the same thing with pictures. Like, you could take a video of a child who's squatting, because you're actually still watching the squat while you're doing that, or you can wait. One of the things I say to people is, like, either do that, where you're actually coaching and setting up the video so you can see them while you're coaching, or you wait till after class and ask the parent, hey, can I keep the kid for another 5 minutes? I'd like them to demonstrate this and then you can.
Yeah.
I like that idea better. You also are unlikely to catch some other nonsense in the background if you stage it. And there's nothing wrong with that. People like to see a single subject moving beautifully, in their photo.
I think it depends on why you're taking the video or whatever as well. Let's say if you're taking it for the purpose of feedback to better an athlete, that's a little bit different than just filming the whole gym so you can stick something on your socials. So yeah, why you're doing it is probably worth thinking about as well before you get the phone out.
How do you feel about teenagers working out in an adult class?
I advise against it for obvious reasons. I understand that some gyms do, and they have like parent and child, and there's merit to maybe that as well. If you're doing like parent and bring your kids sessions from a bonding point of view, but I definitely wouldn't make it a complicated session. That would be something for fun involving body weight and teamwork. But when you come to people saying, can my 16-year-old is really mature, can they join in the class? I'm like, well, how do the adults feel like that for a start? Do they want minors in their class? Do they want the music curtailed so there's no swearing or anything like that? And the legislation surrounding child protection is quite significant in the UK. And I'm going to guess it's the same with you guys, because you have a lot of sort of the negligence and sexual molestation and all those points to consider as well. And I just think the more environments you can put minors in with adults, you're just creating the potential for something to happen. So I definitely say to people, why do you want to do that? Is it trying to make your life easier? Is it because the parents want it? What do the kids want? Are they emotionally mature enough to go in a class with adults? They should be with their peers. That's where they grow. That's where they mature better. There's pieces of equipment that are standard in gyms that say no children. Like this runners, I don't want to actually name all of them because I can't remember which ones actually have the wording and which ones don't. But if you look in the manual, a lot of them will say, do not let children on this equipment. And the legal definition of a child is anyone under 18. So actually, is it suitable to have kids in a class where you can't use the same equipment as adults? And how do you stop them? And how do you mitigate against that when you're trying to also tell somebody to squat lower and push their knees out effectively? It's creating an extra level of risk and management that doesn't need to be there. And then on top of that,
No, you go.
I was going to say, on top of that, then you've got just the social dynamic of it. You've got adults in the gym with minors, and you don't actually know their background. So the more you can monitor that kind of thing and remove that risk completely, then I guess the safer you're going to keep your space. And that, to me, trumps somebody wanting their son to come and join, or daughter or whoever, to come and join a class just because it's more convenient for them.
Our experience is that it's usually that the parent wants to work out with their child or teen. Yeah. I mean, the reality is teens don't go, hey, I want to hang out with my parents more. That is just not a thing. So when somebody comes in there, they want to come to the class with me. It's the parent motivating it. And I agree, asking them a few questions can sometimes kind of find out what's happening and maybe offer some alternate solutions. I know lots of people who do like their once a month family workout. That seems reasonable, right?
Yeah.
But setting up a consistent scenario of all kinds of issues, in addition to the fact that, that when I work with kids, there was little kids.
Yeah.
Rowers and bikes and GHDs are not built for their body size. So
nope.
Why are you doing that anyway? Because it doesn't even fit their body. And so the things aren't happening in the same way that you might assume they're happening because you're using the wrong equipment or the wrong scale equipment for kids.
Yeah.
A couple things too, like with teens, beyond all of the things that you mentioned, there's a couple things to think about. One is that teens, their centers in their brains for making good decisions aren't developed yet. And we all understand this is why we have minors and we have adults. They're minors because we need to protect them from the decisions they make. And so they may make, poor decisions in how they're moving from one piece of equipment to another. They may make poor decisions about the weight they're using. They may make poor decisions about, I just want to get that one more rep. Well, when you're in team class, you're monitoring those things constantly.
Yeah.
Team trainer. But in an adult class, you're not necessarily monitoring those things. Or you're having to spend, you should be, if you have a team in your adult class, you should spend an inordinate amount of time watching that team, making sure that they're doing safe movement and being safe and decisions. And that takes away from the rest of the class.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is interesting is we'll read people will tell us, well, the teen wants to come into my adult class because they want to be challenged. And I tell them, I used to have kids who would leave my teen class, go away to college and come back and want to join the teen class because it was more challenging than the adult class.
Yeah.
These kids, by the time they came through Mikki's class, got into our class, they moved so well and so efficiently and so safely. I could challenge them more than what I could with the adults. And so if you set up your teen program properly, they won't want to go to the adult class for a challenge as well.
I think that plays into the still kind of a little sidebar, but the idea that it has to be fun, and that is absolutely true, but it's not the goal. The goal is movement literacy, right? Movement fluency, loving that for life. It's not fun. Fun is a motivator. So I think what happens is trainers overinterpret that and they make the kids' class more fun than goal oriented, and the kids get to a point where I don't want to be in that, what they perceive as silly, because it's put together on the basis of fun instead of a solid goal.
Well, I think that, and somebody like Rachel, who has this deep roots in CrossFit, goes back to when we started teaching the certifications, and functional fitness was brand new and people were so excited about it and they wanted that for their kids. And then we walk into these gyms and they're going like, we're going to do triple Fran today with our 9-year-olds. Like, dude, it needs to be fun. That's not fun. None of it's fun for us. So we emphasized quite a bit that they had to dial back that kind of stuff, make it fun. And people overinterpreted that.
Exactly. Oh, it came from us.
The goal.
It did.
Yes, it has to be fun, but that's not the goal of the program. That's one of the problems also with long-term with programs, which is kind of outside of this discussion. But I walk into so many gyms and mentoring positions and ask them, what is the goal of your youth program? I say, fun. Well, that's an activity. That's not the parents are going to want to pay for. And it's not something that kids are going to need to come back over and over again. Movement literacy, teaching them to move well, to love movement, and to have a healthy, active lifestyle. That's a good goal.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Rachel, how can people contact you or find you?
Well, the easiest way is we have an Instagram page of Ellipsis Affiliate Systems. So we try and post up helpful little hints on there and just try and get people to see the bigger picture of the investment in compliance rather than it being a slap on the wrist. But my email is ellipsisaffiliatesystems@gmail.com and our website is ellipsistrainingandadventures.com. So any of those methods you can reach out to us.
Wonderful. We thank you so much for having come on and shared this. It's important stuff. I hope people contact you and give themselves an investment in their futures and their gyms and their communities by taking care of checking all the boxes. We appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the Athlete Coach Network, a new connection-based training platform that breaks down regional barriers and connects coaches and athletes anytime, anywhere. You're an athlete and love to push yourself. Who's guiding you? As an athlete, you can filter and search our library to find the perfect coach. or sign up for a membership to get video feedback and comments from our coaches all over the world. As a coach, you can set up your profile and advertise your credentials, set your own price for video reviews or direct messaging to ensure your rates reflects the value of your time. Welcome to the Athlete Coach Network, and welcome to the future of sports coaching.
That was the Youth Fitness Podcast, topics on youth fitness with focus on doing what's best for kids. Brought to you by the Martin family, the developers of the Brand X Method and the Athlete Coach Network. We hope you guys enjoyed that episode and you listen for more.